The alien commander gave an odd order. "Human, you are to inspect me." Captain Alara Voss stood silently, her hands clasped behind her back, eyes fixed on the distant points of light. She had always loved space, the quiet, the endless possibilities, and the way it made everything else on Earth feel small and temporary. But today, even the endless calm of the cosmos felt charged with tension. A soft chime echoed through the Council's communication hub. Alara turned sharply. The message was simple, direct, and entirely unexpected. "Captain Alara Voss, report immediately to the Xylan flagship Orinthia. You are required for personal inspection by Commander Viral." She blinked. The Xylan were a species known throughout the galaxy for their rigid discipline and secrecy. No human had ever been called for a personal meeting with a Xylan commander. And yet, here was an order from the highest level of the Xylan military. Alara drew in a deep breath, steadying her nerves. She reminded herself that fear was natural, but courage was essential. Humanity had a reputation for curiosity, for tenacity, and for adaptability. If the Xylan wanted her, it was both a risk and an opportunity to show what humans could do when faced with the unknown. The journey to the Orinthia was quick, but Alara did not sleep. She reviewed every detail she knew about the Xylan, their communication patterns, their social hierarchy, their methods of conflict resolution. Everything emphasized efficiency, discipline, and obedience. Humans, in comparison, were chaotic, emotional, unpredictable, and imaginative. Perhaps that was exactly what the commander wanted to see. The Orinthia loomed on the edge of the human fleet's patrol range, a massive structure of gleaming metal and blue-hued energy shields. It floated silently in the void, serene yet imposing. Alara's transport craft docked with a soft hum, the magnetic locks sealing her vessel to the alien ship. She checked her uniform, straightened her posture, and stepped through the airlock. Inside, the ship was unlike anything she had imagined. The walls glimmered with an organic quality, pulsing faintly as if alive. Light traveled along fluid lines instead of straight corridors, and the air hummed softly, carrying a faint scent of minerals and ozone. She paused, letting her eyes adjust, absorbing every detail. This was not merely a military ship, it was a statement. The Xylan had a presence, a quiet authority that humans could sense but not always understand. A voice called her forward. It was not loud, nor did it demand attention. It was simply there, calm, precise, and deliberate. "Captain Voss," it said. The voice carried an authority that made her spine straighten instantly. "You are expected." She followed the corridor, her footsteps soft against the smooth floor. The air seemed to respond to her movements, subtle currents shifting in patterns that were almost imperceptible. She paused at an intersection, noticing that the walls had symbols etched into them. They were geometric, intricate, and elegant. She couldn't read them, but she could sense meaning in their arrangement. The Xylan valued intelligence, observation, and subtlety. Everything here was a message, a test, or perhaps both. At the end of the corridor, a large chamber opened before her. Light radiated from a source she could not see, creating shadows that danced along the curved walls. In the center of the room stood the commander, Viral. He was taller than any human she had seen, his posture perfectly straight, his movements smooth and controlled. His skin had a muted metallic sheen, like polished bronze under soft light. His eyes, large and luminous, held a depth that was both intimidating and strangely curious. He regarded her with a calm intensity, studying her as she studied him. Then he spoke. "Captain Voss, you are to inspect me." Alara froze for a moment. The words hung in the air like a puzzle. She had expected diplomacy, discussion, or perhaps interrogation. But this was unusual, odd, even for the Xylan. She recovered quickly, her training kicking in. I am to inspect you?" she asked, her voice steady, careful. Viral inclined his head slightly, the faintest acknowledgement of her question. "Yes, observe me, learn from me. Report what you find. This is a duty, not a challenge." Her mind raced. Why would a commander invite a human to inspect him personally? Humans were known for curiosity, yes, but also for unpredictability. Was this trust a test or a demonstration? She decided to approach it as a learning opportunity to observe, analyze, and understand. That was what humans did best. "Very well," she said finally, taking a small step forward. "Where should I begin?" Viral gestured toward a series of panels and devices surrounding him. "Begin with observation. Note patterns, behaviors, and functions. Focus on details that reveal character, intention, and logic. That is all you need to see. Alara moved closer, her eyes scanning every detail. The commander's movements were deliberate, precise. He shifted weight, adjusted posture, and touched objects with a lightness that suggested both control and awareness. His gestures seemed almost human in their subtlety, yet there was something more, a discipline and harmony that no human could replicate naturally. She noted the rhythm of his breathing, the slight variations in his stance, the way his eyes seemed to anticipate her thoughts before she even acted. Humans were capable of reading people, understanding emotion, and predicting behavior. And now, in a strange reversal, a human was being asked to read an alien, a being whose experiences, instincts, and senses were far beyond human comprehension. Hours passed as she observed, questioned, and made mental notes. She tested the limits of her perception, noticing small details, the slight tension in his fingers when he concentrated, the subtle light shifts along the walls in response to his movements, and the faint energy pulse that seemed to mark his focus. Viral did not speak much. He allowed her to guide the inspection, intervening only when necessary. When he did, his voice was calm, explanatory, never condescending. "Notice this," he would say softly. "Consider why it exists. Consider its purpose." Alara realized something important. This inspection was not about the commander himself. It was about perspective, about understanding a species that was alien in every way but could be understood through observation, logic, and intuition. It was about proving that humanity's greatest strength was its mind, curious, adaptable, and imaginative. At one point, she paused and looked directly at him. "Commander," she said, "your discipline is remarkable, but there is a flexibility beneath it. You adjust without losing control. Humans might call that intuition." Viral's eyes seemed to brighten, though it was hard to tell in a being so unreadable. "Perhaps," he replied, "or perhaps it is simply survival. You will learn that the difference between intuition and instinct is often interpretation." Alara smiled inwardly. Humans had survived through curiosity, ingenuity, and empathy. Even when faced with danger, uncertainty, or beings far more advanced, humans adapted. That had always been her belief. Now, standing before Commander Viral, she could see it reflected back at her, a mirror that challenged her perception and encouraged her growth. Finally, after what felt like a long cycle of observation, she stepped back. She had seen, analyzed, and learned more in this room than she had in years of interstellar negotiation. And yet, she knew this was only the beginning. The commander had allowed her to observe, but he had not revealed his full intentions. "Captain Voss," Viral said, breaking the silence, "you have completed this first phase. You understand more than you realize. But the next stage will require not just observation, but understanding." Alara's pulse quickened. The Xylan were masters of mental and strategic exercises. Whatever came next, she knew it would test her skills, her instincts, and her humanity. And yet she felt no fear, only anticipation. Humans had a way of thriving in the unknown. They learned, adapted, and persevered. She would do the same. As she prepared to leave the chamber, she took one last look at the commander. In his stillness, there was wisdom, curiosity, and something she could not quite name, a challenge. Not a threat, not a test of strength, but a challenge to prove what humanity could truly offer. Stepping into the corridor, she realized that the galaxy was far larger, stranger, and more mysterious than she had ever imagined. And yet, humans had a place here, not just as observers, but as participants, innovators, and partners. Orinthia's corridors stretched endlessly before her, lit by shifting patterns of light and shadow. She walked with purpose, knowing that this was the first step in a journey that would test her mind, her spirit, and the very essence of what it meant to be human. And somewhere deep within the ship, Commander Viral watched her go, silently acknowledging the spark of curiosity, courage, and intelligence that only humans could bring. Captain Alara Voss paused at the doorway of the chamber as the soft hum of the Orinthia's energy systems surrounded her. Her first encounter with Commander Viral had been unlike anything she had expected, tense, yet oddly calm. Now, she was about to begin the inspection he had requested. She adjusted the strap of her communicator and took a deep breath. "Observation is more than looking," she reminded herself. Humans had a talent for noticing patterns, for reading between the lines. If the commander wanted her to inspect him, she would need to focus on every detail, physical, behavioral, and even what could not be directly seen. Viral gestured for her to approach. Begin where you choose, focus on what speaks to you, do not rush. Ilara nodded and stepped closer. Her eyes swept over him carefully, taking in the posture, the movement, the subtle interactions with the surrounding devices. Viral did not move like a human, but there was a rhythm to his motion. It was precise, yet not mechanical. Every action seemed purposeful, calculated, and controlled. She began with his hands. They were long and graceful, fingers slightly tapered, with a light sheen across the knuckles. He touched the panels around him with care, never a false movement. There was intelligence in the smallest gestures, a precision that suggested deep understanding of his environment. Humans often excelled at improvisation, but the Xylan commander was a master of controlled precision. Still, she could see patterns, and in patterns she found hints of thought and intention. Next, she studied his eyes. They were larger than a human's and glimmered with a soft luminescence. When he looked at her, it was not just sight, it was calculation. He seemed to anticipate her movements, noticing the tiniest shift of weight, the smallest hesitation. Humans could be observant, but her training had prepared her for moments like this. She focused not on fear, but on curiosity, noting what she could learn from the commander's reactions. "Commander," she said softly, "your gestures are very controlled. I notice a pattern in your interaction with the panels. Every movement is minimal, yet precise." "Is this habit or instinct?" Viral's luminous eyes focused on her. "Both," he said simply. "Discipline becomes instinct when practiced long enough. Observation teaches control. Control maintains order." Ilara considered this. Humans relied on experience and intuition, sometimes improvising in ways that surprised even themselves. Perhaps the Xylan's strength lay in discipline, but she could see that humans' flexibility could achieve the unexpected. She noted the contrast in her mind, structure versus adaptability. She moved closer, observing his posture. His shoulders were broad and relaxed, yet rigid when necessary. He shifted weight subtly, shifting from one foot to another, yet always balanced. There was a quiet confidence in every motion, an assurance that came from experience. Humans had confidence too, but it often stemmed from empathy, curiosity, and adaptability rather than sheer discipline. Ilara smiled faintly. That might be what the commander wanted to see, how a human would interpret and respond to this alien precision. Viral gestured toward a panel. "Consider these devices. They are integral to my role as commander. Observe how I interact with them. Understand not only function but intention." Ilara approached the panel. The surfaces glimmered with soft light, responding to proximity and touch. Symbols shifted as her hand passed over them. She noted how Viral's touch activated certain responses almost before her own mind could comprehend them. "He is in tune with the environment," she thought. "Every movement calculated to minimize waste, maximize efficiency." She began to record observations mentally. Humans were skilled at pattern recognition, and she noted subtle variations. The way his hand lingered slightly on one symbol, the faint tilt of his head when considering data, the energy pulse that seemed to mark focus. Each detail told a story about thought, intent, and character. "Captain," Viral said, "you notice much, but understanding comes not from observation alone, it comes from interpretation." Ilara paused. Humans had long relied on interpretation. On Earth, she had learned that reading intent, emotion, and context could reveal truths hidden in plain sight. She would need the same skill here. She focused on more than gestures. She watched for patterns in behavior, timing, and rhythm. Hours passed in quiet observation. Ilara noted everything: the faint hum of energy fields around Viral, the changes in light as he moved, the way his eyes seemed to map the room instinctively. She noticed the commander's breathing, slow and steady, yet rhythmic, a subtle signal of focus and control. Humans had the ability to analyze subtle cues, to find meaning in minimal signals. Here, that skill was proving essential. At one point, she leaned slightly closer to a console, adjusting her angle to observe his reactions. Viral did not react immediately. He allowed her to engage, then shifted slightly, almost imperceptibly, aligning his gaze with hers. "You are learning," he said. "Observation is one step, comprehension is the next." Ilara nodded. This was no ordinary inspection. It was a dialogue without words, a test of perception and understanding. She realized that humans' ability to think beyond what is presented, to infer and innovate, was what the commander truly wished to witness. She shifted focus, observing his subtle interactions with the room itself. The walls pulsed faintly with energy as he moved. The devices responded instantly to the smallest gestures. She noted the efficiency and the elegance. This is not only command, she thought. This is artistry, precision, and understanding combined. Viral spoke again, his tone calm and deliberate. You have seen my methods. Now consider this. What is the purpose behind control? Why maintain precision at all times? Alara considered her answer carefully. Control is not merely about order. It is about clarity. It is about ensuring that decisions are deliberate, not impulsive. It allows understanding and response to be accurate and meaningful. Viral tilted his head slightly, the gesture subtle but undeniably approving. You speak as a human, yet you understand concepts beyond your species' usual practice. Humans are often unpredictable, yet you see predictability in complexity. Perhaps there is value in that. Alara felt a sense of quiet pride. Humans were adaptable, creative, and insightful. Even when faced with beings far more disciplined or technologically advanced, humans found ways to understand, innovate, and contribute. She realized that was precisely what the commander wanted, to test the limits of human perception and intelligence. She continued her inspection, moving carefully around the chamber. She observed small nuances, the tilt of Viral's shoulders when considering multiple panels at once, the faint synchronization of his movements with the energy flows in the room, and the subtle cues in his eyes when shifting focus. Humans had a natural ability to notice patterns, to infer intention, and to think beyond what was presented. She was proving that ability now. Hours turned into what felt like a full cycle of observation. Alara recorded everything mentally, noting patterns, deviations, and interactions. Every detail mattered. Humans had long survived and thrived in unexpected situations by noticing subtleties others overlooked. Now she was demonstrating that skill to an alien species at the height of its discipline. Finally, she stepped back, satisfied that she had captured the essence of the commander's presence. Commander Viral, she said, I have observed your movements, your focus, and your interaction with the environment. You maintain control and efficiency, yet there is flexibility, adaptability, and awareness. It is impressive. Viral regarded her silently for a moment, then inclined his head. You understand more than you realize. Observation alone is not sufficient. Interpretation requires empathy, creativity, and insight, traits humans possess uniquely. Alara smiled faintly. She had always believed in humanity's ability to adapt and learn. Now, standing before the Xylan commander, she understood the true weight of that belief. Humans were not only capable of survival, but also of understanding and bridging the unknown. That was their edge. Viral spoke again, his tone calm but deliberate. The next phase of this inspection will require more than observation. You must engage, not only notice. Your perception will be tested, and your decisions will reveal the true depth of human understanding. Alara felt a thrill of anticipation. Humans had always risen to challenges with ingenuity, empathy, and creativity. Whatever the commander required next, she was ready. She would not simply observe, she would participate, adapt, and demonstrate the human edge. As she prepared to leave the chamber for a brief rest, she took a last look at Commander Viral. There was no threat in his stance, no hostility in his eyes. Instead, there was curiosity, a challenge, and perhaps even respect. Humans had a reputation for unpredictability, but in that unpredictability lay potential. Walking down the Orinthia's softly glowing corridors, Alara felt a renewed sense of purpose. She understood that this inspection was not about proving strength or dominance. It was about demonstrating understanding, adaptability, and insight, qualities that humans excelled at naturally. And somewhere deep within the ship, Commander Viral watched silently, acknowledging the spark of curiosity, courage, and intelligence that only humans could bring. Alara knew the inspection was far from over. The next stage would test her in ways she could not yet imagine, but she was ready. Humans had survived, thrived, and innovated against impossible odds. This was simply another challenge, one that required observation, insight, and the very qualities that made humanity remarkable. With determination, curiosity, and the quiet confidence of her species, Alara prepared for the next step. The galaxy was vast, the Xylan enigmatic and the future uncertain. But humans had an edge, and she intended to show it. Captain Alara Voss awoke early, the Orinthia's soft luminescence filtering through her quarters. The quiet hum of the ship was familiar now, almost comforting, but her mind was alive with anticipation. Today would be different. Observation had been the first phase, watching Commander Viral, understanding his movements and learning the rhythms of the ship. Now he had promised a new phase, engagement. Humans excelled not just in observation, but in innovation, adaptability, and creative thinking. Ilara reminded herself that these qualities were what made humanity valuable, unpredictable in ways that no alien protocol could anticipate. She dressed quickly, adjusted her communicator, and walked to the chamber. Viral awaited her as always, standing in the center of the room. His posture was as precise and disciplined as before, yet there was something new in the calm glow of his eyes. Perhaps he anticipated her questions, or perhaps he simply appreciated the human eagerness that she could not conceal. "You are prepared for the next phase," Viral said, his voice even and deliberate. "Engagement requires insight beyond observation. You must anticipate, respond, and decide." Ilara nodded. She felt a thrill of excitement. Humans thrived in uncertainty, in challenges that required problem-solving and intuition. This was an opportunity to demonstrate not just her abilities but the potential of her species. Viral gestured toward a series of holographic displays that materialized in midair. Each display was complex, filled with symbols, geometric patterns, and shifting energy flows. "These simulations represent decision environments," he explained. "Your task is to analyze, interpret, and act. Your responses will be evaluated for adaptability, insight, and problem-solving." Ilara stepped closer. The displays pulsed gently, responding to her presence. She examined the first scenario, a network of interlocking energy nodes, each affecting the others in subtle, cascading ways. Humans were skilled at recognizing patterns and anticipating consequences. She focused, tracing the flow of energy in her mind, predicting the outcomes of different interventions. Her finger hovered above the holographic interface. With a deliberate motion, she redirected one of the energy streams. The pattern shifted, stabilizing into a more balanced configuration. The display glowed brightly, signaling success. Viral observed silently. "You apply logic efficiently, yet understanding requires intuition as well as reason." The next scenario appeared. This time it was more abstract, a shifting lattice of symbols, some of which responded to touch, others to thought patterns. Ilara realized that this test required more than analysis, it required creativity. She experimented, combining sequences in ways that the display had not anticipated. Slowly, the lattice stabilized, revealing a hidden image. A map of energy flows across a simulated planetary system. Viral's eyes glimmered. "Human creativity is remarkable," he said. "Your species can see beyond the immediate. You can imagine possibilities that others cannot. This is valuable." Ilara smiled faintly. Humans had survived and thrived because of imagination and flexibility, even when faced with threats far larger and more advanced than themselves. This was precisely the strength the commander wanted to observe. The third scenario appeared without warning. A complex network of moving orbs filled the room. Each orb emitted a soft hum, interacting with others according to rules that were not immediately apparent. Ilara realized this was a test of prediction and coordination. Humans were capable of rapid learning and adaptation, skills she relied on daily. She studied the orbs, noting their patterns and timing. Slowly, she began to anticipate their movements, adjusting her actions accordingly. When one orb threatened to collide with another, she redirected it with a careful motion of her hand. Gradually, the network settled into a harmonious configuration. Viral's gaze softened. "You are learning to integrate observation, creativity, and anticipation. Few species can achieve such coordination in unfamiliar systems. Humans excel in unexpected circumstances." Ilara felt a sense of pride. She was demonstrating humanity's unique abilities, intelligence combined with intuition, discipline tempered by flexibility. Humans could adapt, innovate, and find solutions that no rigid protocol could predict. This was the essence of her species' strength. The commander then introduced a new element, interaction. Holographic avatars of other beings appeared in the simulation, each with their own behaviors, objectives, and limitations. Alara realized that this was a test of diplomacy, empathy, and strategic thinking. Humans were social creatures, skilled at reading emotions and predicting responses. Now she would need to apply these skills in an alien context. She approached the first avatar. It moved according to its own logic, independent of her expectations. Alara observed carefully, noting its tendencies and responses. With patience, she adjusted her actions, guiding the avatar toward cooperation without direct command. Slowly, the avatar aligned with her objectives. Viral's voice broke the silence. Observe not only behavior but intention, understand motives, influence without coercion. This is subtlety, a hallmark of human intelligence. Alara continued, interacting with each avatar in turn. Some were cooperative, others resistant, and a few unpredictable. Humans had long relied on empathy and adaptability to navigate complex social environments. By observing, interpreting, and responding appropriately, she gradually brought harmony to the simulation. Hours passed as she engaged with the scenarios. Her mind was sharp, her senses alert, and her confidence growing. Humans had evolved in unpredictable environments, learning to balance intellect with intuition, empathy with logic. Every decision she made reflected these qualities. Viral observed silently, his presence commanding yet unobtrusive. He did not intervene unnecessarily, allowing her to make choices, test limits, and demonstrate the human edge. Finally, the simulations ended. The holographic displays dissolved, leaving the chamber bathed in soft light. Alara exhaled, feeling the satisfaction of accomplishment. She had navigated unfamiliar systems, interpreted alien logic, and guided complex interactions to resolution. She had applied observation, creativity, and empathy in ways the commander had requested, and perhaps even beyond his expectations. Viral regarded her with calm intensity. You have demonstrated insight, adaptability, and understanding. Your species possesses qualities that are rare in the galaxy, the ability to anticipate, to innovate, and to harmonize with systems unfamiliar to you. These are valuable traits. Alara felt a surge of quiet pride. Humans had often been underestimated, seen as chaotic and emotional. Yet here, in the presence of one of the galaxy's most disciplined beings, she had shown that humanity's strengths were unique, a combination of intellect, empathy, creativity, and courage. The commander continued, "Observation is passive, engagement is active. You have now demonstrated both, yet there is one more dimension, not only to understand and respond, but to lead and inspire." Alara listened intently. Humans had a remarkable ability to lead in unexpected circumstances, often without formal authority. Inspiration came from creativity, courage, and empathy, qualities she hoped would serve her in this next challenge. Viral gestured toward a large holographic projection at the center of the room. It depicted a simulated environment, a complex planetary system with multiple colonies, energy flows, and environmental variables. This scenario will test not only your mind but your influence. Guide systems predict outcomes and harmonize objectives. You will act as both observer and orchestrator. Alara stepped forward, examining the projection. It was complex, but humans thrived on complexity. Their species had survived unpredictable environments, evolved in diverse conditions, and solved problems that had no obvious solutions. This was an opportunity to demonstrate these traits in a controlled but alien context. She began interacting with the simulation, noting energy flows, predicting patterns, and adjusting variables to maintain stability. Avatars representing different colonies responded to her guidance, sometimes cooperating immediately, sometimes resisting, sometimes behaving in ways she did not expect. Yet humans had a gift for adaptation. She adjusted, redirected, and harmonized the system gradually, combining intuition, logic, and empathy. Viral's eyes glimmered with interest. You do not simply react, you anticipate, influence, and integrate. Few species could achieve such cohesion in a system of this complexity. Humans are remarkable. Alara smiled faintly, inwardly proud of her species. Humans had always thrived in the unknown, relied on ingenuity, and embraced challenges that others avoided. This simulation was a mirror of that spirit, a test of mind, insight, and adaptability. Hours passed, but Alara's focus never wavered. Humans excelled in endurance, patience, and attention to detail when the stakes mattered. She applied every skill she possessed, every lesson she had learned from the Xylan commander's previous instructions. Finally, the system stabilized. The colonies flourished, energy flows balanced, and every avatar achieved harmony. Alara stepped back, satisfied. She had not only observed and engaged, but she had guided and influenced, demonstrating the full spectrum of human capability. Viral regarded her silently, then inclined his head. You have completed the test of mind. Observation, engagement, and influence all successfully demonstrated. Your species possesses qualities that are rare, valuable, and extraordinary. You have shown the human edge. Alara felt a quiet sense of triumph. Humans had always relied on curiosity, intuition, and adaptability. Here, in the presence of one of the galaxy's most disciplined beings, she had demonstrated that these qualities were not only sufficient, but exceptional. Viral's final words echoed in the chamber. The mind is powerful, but understanding is not complete until insight is combined with cooperation. The next phase will require both intellect and partnership, qualities your species demonstrates in abundance. Alara nodded. Humans had thrived through collaboration, empathy, and creativity. She understood now that this inspection was more than observation. It was a demonstration of humanity's unique strengths in a galaxy that valued precision, discipline, and intelligence in equal measure. With anticipation, she prepared for the next challenge. Humans had an edge, and she would continue to show it. The chamber was quiet as Captain Alara Voss stepped in, the soft hum of the Orinthia echoing around her. She had completed the first 3 phases of the inspection: observation, engagement, and influence. Each had tested her mind, her perception, and her ability to adapt in unfamiliar situations. And yet, Viral had said that this was not the end. There was still one more phase. Alara's thoughts drifted to the commander. His discipline, precision, and subtlety had challenged her in ways she had never imagined. Humans were curious, adaptable, and resilient, but standing before him, she realized the Xylan had a perspective far different from any species she had encountered. Every gesture, every test had a purpose. She wondered what the final phase might reveal. Viral stood in the center of the room as she approached. He was calm, composed, and unwavering. His eyes, luminous and steady, regarded her with a quiet intensity. "Captain Voss," he said, his voice smooth and deliberate, "you have performed well. Your abilities are notable, and your species shows qualities that few others possess, yet understanding is incomplete without knowledge of purpose." Alara straightened, her pulse quickening with anticipation. She had demonstrated the human edge, adaptability, intuition, creativity, and insight. But the commander's words suggested that the tests were not only for assessment. There was a reason for this inspection, a purpose she had yet to discover. Viral gestured toward a large projection in the center of the chamber. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing a complex map of a distant planetary system. Multiple colonies, energy networks, and interstellar routes were visible, overlaid with shifting symbols and colored lines. It was a system of remarkable intricacy, one that no human alone could fully comprehend at a glance. "This is the sector in which my command operates," Viral explained. "Recent observations indicate a situation that cannot be resolved by Xylan methods alone. Predictability, discipline, and precision are valuable. But in this case, an adaptable perspective is required, one that can perceive beyond structured rules." Alara studied the projection carefully. The complexity of the system was staggering. Variables intertwined in ways that were difficult to track, and patterns shifted constantly. She could see the Xylan logic: efficient, precise, consistent. But there were anomalies, gaps where unpredictability caused minor disruptions. Viral continued. "The Xylan have analyzed the situation extensively. Every protocol has been tested. Yet the solution remains elusive. This is why humans are necessary. Your species possesses qualities that allow insight where structure alone fails." Alara felt a mixture of pride and responsibility. Humans had always relied on intuition, empathy, and creativity to navigate challenges that seemed unsolvable. Here, her species was being called upon not just to observe or test, but to contribute in a meaningful, impactful way. She stepped closer to the holographic display, examining the colonies, energy flows, and interconnections. Patterns were visible, but some anomalies defied conventional logic. Humans excelled at noticing what others overlooked, small inconsistencies, subtle shifts, or connections that did not fit the expected pattern. Viral watched her silently, allowing her to analyze freely. "Observe carefully, Captain Voss," he said. "Your perspective may reveal solutions that structured analysis cannot." Alara focused intently, her mind mapping relationships between variables, testing hypotheses in her head. She noted subtle energy fluctuations, the timing of intercolony communications, and minor deviations in routine. Each detail offered a clue, and slowly, patterns began to emerge. Humans had long survived and thrived by recognizing hidden connections, adapting to unexpected circumstances, and using creativity to solve complex problems. She felt that same process guiding her now. Hours passed as she worked, analyzing the system and cross-referencing variables. Viral remained a calm observer, offering no assistance, only occasionally commenting in his soft, deliberate tone. "Your species interprets not only data but intention. That is valuable." Insight requires empathy, reasoning, and imagination. Alara smiled inwardly. This was humanity's strength, the ability to combine intellect with intuition, analysis with creativity. Humans had learned to adapt to environments far beyond what any single system could predict. Now she was demonstrating that ability on a cosmic scale. After a careful analysis, Alara spoke. "Commander Viral, I believe the solution involves redirecting energy flows between colonies to stabilize the system. Certain anomalies appear to respond better to indirect influence rather than direct adjustment. By adjusting variables subtly and allowing patterns to emerge naturally, the system can achieve equilibrium without forceful intervention." Viral's eyes brightened slightly. "Your approach is unconventional yet insightful. It demonstrates understanding, not merely of structure but of dynamic interaction. Few species could perceive the system holistically, let alone propose an effective solution." Alara felt a quiet sense of triumph. Humans had always excelled where rigid logic failed. Creativity, empathy, and adaptability, traits sometimes undervalued by other species, were exactly what the Xylan needed in this scenario. Viral gestured to a console, activating a simulation of the proposed adjustments. Energy flows shifted according to her plan, and slowly the anomalies began to stabilize. Colony systems synchronized, communications flowed smoothly, and the projection glowed with a balanced energy signature. "You have succeeded," Viral said. "Not by applying rigid rules, but by understanding complexity, anticipating interaction, and applying insight. This is the essence of human capability. Your species demonstrates qualities that complement our own." Alara exhaled, a mixture of relief and pride flooding through her. She had not only demonstrated the human edge in observation and engagement, but she had applied it to solve a problem that even a disciplined species like the Xylan could not resolve alone. Humans thrived on creativity, intuition, and adaptability, and those qualities had been recognized and relied upon by one of the galaxy's most formidable commanders. Viral regarded her for a long moment. "The reason for your selection is now clear. Humans possess adaptability, insight, and creativity, qualities that are rare and valuable. The Xylan excel in discipline and precision, but there are circumstances where these qualities alone are insufficient. Your species fills that gap." Alara nodded, absorbing the magnitude of his words. Humans had always been underestimated, seen as unpredictable or emotional. Yet here, in a moment of cooperation and understanding, her species had proven essential. The inspection had been a test, yes, but also an invitation, a recognition that humans could contribute in ways others could not. She studied Viral, noticing the faint acknowledgement in his posture. "I understand," she said. "Humans are being asked to participate, to bring perspective, creativity, and insight where structure alone cannot solve the problem. And this is the beginning of something larger, isn't it?" Viral inclined his head slightly. "Yes. Cooperation between our species can yield solutions neither could achieve alone. Your species, adaptability, and insight are essential for challenges that are not predictable, not routine, and not confined to established protocols. Humans are uniquely suited to this role." Alara felt a surge of purpose. Humans had always survived and thrived in the unknown. Their curiosity, intelligence, and empathy had allowed them to navigate challenges that seemed impossible. Now, those same qualities were being recognized on a cosmic scale. She turned her attention back to the holographic system. There was still work to do, refining adjustments, monitoring responses, and ensuring stability. Humans excelled in persistence as well as creativity. This was not simply a demonstration, it was a responsibility. Hours passed as she continued to analyze, adjust, and stabilize the simulation. Viral observed, silent but attentive. He allowed her to lead, to innovate, and to demonstrate the human approach to problem-solving. Each success reinforced the value of her species' unique abilities. Finally, the system stabilized completely. The colonies were balanced, energy flows harmonized, and anomalies resolved. The holographic projection glowed evenly, a testament to her careful analysis and human ingenuity. Viral regarded her silently, then spoke. "You have demonstrated the full spectrum of human capability: observation, engagement, influence, insight, and adaptability. Your species possesses qualities that complement our own, creating a partnership that is rare and valuable." Alara felt a deep sense of accomplishment. Humans had always relied on creativity, empathy, and intelligence to thrive. Here, those qualities had been recognized by one of the galaxy's most disciplined beings, not as curiosity or luck, but as essential contributions to solving a problem that even the Xylan could not resolve alone. Viral continued, his tone calm but deliberate. The inspection was not merely a test. It was an invitation to demonstrate your species' value, to engage in cooperation, and to contribute to challenges that require both discipline and adaptability. Humans have succeeded, and now the future holds opportunities for collaboration. Alara nodded, understanding the gravity and significance of his words. The inspection had revealed not only her abilities but humanity's potential role in the galaxy. The Xylan had recognized what humans had always known, that adaptability, insight, and creativity were strengths, not weaknesses. As she left the chamber, Alara felt a renewed sense of purpose. Humans had a role to play not as observers or minor participants, but as contributors, innovators, and collaborators. The galaxy was vast, challenges were many, and her species was uniquely equipped to face them. Somewhere deep within the Orinthia, Commander Viral observed her departure. The human had proven herself, and in doing so, demonstrated the qualities that could shape the future of interstellar cooperation. The inspection was complete, but the journey was just beginning. And Alara understood, with quiet pride and anticipation, that humans had a place not just at the edge of the galaxy, but at the center of its challenges, solutions, and opportunities. Captain Alara Voss stepped back into the chamber, her mind alive with the lessons of the previous phases. Observation, engagement, insight, each had tested her skills and her perception, but now the challenge was different. Viral had explained that understanding alone was insufficient. The final stage required action, collaboration, and leadership. The holographic projection in the center of the chamber glowed softly. The planetary system, which had been stabilized through her analysis in the last phase, now displayed new anomalies: unexpected energy fluctuations, subtle shifts in colony activity, and irregular patterns in communication. Viral gestured toward the display. "Captain Voss," he said, his voice calm but commanding, "the system is stable under simulation, but real conditions remain dynamic. Observation and insight have proven valuable. Now the application of your species, creativity and adaptability is required to ensure long-term harmony. You will lead a team to implement adjustments across multiple colonies." Alara felt a surge of anticipation. Humans had always thrived in leadership roles, especially when unpredictability demanded quick thinking, empathy, and innovation. This was the culmination of her inspection, a chance to demonstrate not just understanding, but decisive action guided by intellect and intuition. Viral extended his hand toward a console, activating a network interface connecting the colonies and energy systems. "You will direct both Xylan operators and human technicians. Coordination, strategy, and adaptability will be tested. Your species' ability to integrate diverse perspectives is essential." Alara approached the console, her mind mapping priorities. She quickly assessed the situation. Energy flows needed balancing, communications had to be synchronized, and environmental stability required careful calibration. Her training as a captain and a human strategist gave her an edge. Humans excelled at adapting plans to rapidly changing conditions. The team assembled at her command. Xylan technicians moved with flawless precision, their discipline unmatched. Human engineers worked alongside them, bringing creativity, intuition, and adaptability. The blend of species created a dynamic atmosphere, structured efficiency, paired with inventive problem-solving. "Let's begin with energy stabilization," Alara said, her voice clear and confident. "Observe the current flow, predict potential disruptions, and prepare contingency adjustments. Humans focus on anomalies that require flexible solutions. Xylan maintain precise alignment with standard protocols." The work began. Energy flows pulsed through the network, responsive to human adjustments and Xylan precision. Alara coordinated both teams, anticipating challenges before they arose. Humans noticed subtle deviations that Xylan protocols would have missed, and the Xylan ensured that overall systems maintained discipline and order. Minutes turned into hours. Alara's mind remained alert, adjusting strategies, combining approaches, and interpreting feedback in real time. Humans were particularly adept at noticing patterns that did not conform to expectations. She leveraged this ability, guiding the team to respond before issues could escalate. At one point, a colony displayed unexpected behavior. Energy readings fluctuated unpredictably, threatening to destabilize surrounding systems. Xylan technicians began their protocol, precise but rigid. Alara intervened. "Hold," she said calmly. "Redirect only partially, observe the feedback, let the system adjust naturally before we apply full correction." Xylan technicians paused, unfamiliar with this adaptive approach. Humans, trained to think flexibly, monitored the feedback alongside her. Slowly, the fluctuations stabilized, settling into a new equilibrium. Viral watched silently, his eyes glimmering with approval. "You integrate observation, intuition, and leadership. This is beyond mere problem-solving. You harmonize unpredictability with structure, a uniquely human skill." Alara felt a quiet satisfaction. Humans had always excelled in situations that required creativity, collaboration, and rapid adaptation. This was a validation of those traits on a galactic scale. The next challenge involved inter-colony communication networks. Several colonies were experiencing delays in data transmission due to environmental interference. The standard Xylan solution would have involved precise recalibration of signal relays, but that approach might have caused temporary disruption elsewhere. Alara assessed the situation. Humans often thrived by improvising solutions that balanced multiple factors. She devised a strategy that involved rerouting transmissions temporarily, then using dynamic feedback to adjust signal strength gradually. "Implement this method," she instructed. Humans and Xylan technicians worked together seamlessly. The network began to synchronize, unexpected delays resolved without disruption, and the colonies returned to normal operation. Viral inclined his head slightly. "You anticipate consequences beyond immediate variables. Humans possess foresight that complements Xylan precision. This is the human edge, insight paired with adaptability." Alara allowed herself a moment to breathe. Hours had passed, yet the work was far from complete. Humans had stamina as well as creativity. They had survived harsh conditions, unpredictable environments, and constant challenges. Now, she applied that resilience to guide a team of species with differing strengths toward a unified goal. The final task involved environmental stabilization on one of the outer colonies. Shifts in energy flows had caused minor atmospheric variations. Xylan protocols required exact adjustments at precise intervals, but the human approach allowed for monitoring and iterative correction. Alara coordinated the effort. Humans observed subtle environmental cues, making adjustments that complemented Xylan calculations. Together, they achieved stability faster than any protocol alone would have permitted. Viral's voice broke the quiet. "Your leadership ensures success not through force, but through understanding, adaptation, and integration. Humans do not merely follow patterns, they create solutions where patterns fail. This is rare, and this is why your species is essential." Alara felt a profound sense of accomplishment. Humans had always relied on curiosity, adaptability, and insight to overcome challenges. Here, in a galaxy filled with structured discipline, her species, unique strengths were not just recognized, but essential to success. Hours later, the system was fully stabilized. Energy flows were balanced, communications synchronized, and environments harmonized. The colonies functioned smoothly, a testament to collaboration and human ingenuity. Viral regarded her silently. His presence, always commanding yet calm, seemed to acknowledge more than the success of the operation. He was recognizing the human qualities that had made it possible: observation, creativity, empathy, adaptability, and leadership. "Captain Voss," he said finally, "you have completed the final phase. Observation, engagement, insight, and leadership all have been demonstrated. Your species' unique qualities complement our own in ways that promise success beyond any single approach. Humans are capable of shaping outcomes where predictability fails." Alara nodded, understanding the full magnitude of his words. Humans had always survived and thrived by being adaptable, perceptive, and inventive. Now, those qualities had been recognized on a galactic scale. The inspection had not only tested her skills, but revealed humanity's potential for meaningful contribution. Viral continued. "The future of this system, and perhaps others, now includes your species. Humans are not only observers, but participants, leaders, and collaborators. Your insights and actions have proven the value of cooperation between species." Alara felt a sense of pride and responsibility. Humans had always been underestimated, yet their abilities to innovate, adapt, and lead were now validated in ways beyond Earth's boundaries. She realized that this was just the beginning, the first step in a larger partnership that could shape the galaxy. She turned to the assembled team, humans and Xylan alike. They had worked together seamlessly, combining strengths, complementing weaknesses, and achieving harmony. Humans had led through collaboration, empathy, and insight, demonstrating that leadership was not about dominance, but understanding and coordination. Viral observed the team, his gaze lingering on Alara. "This is the result of human ingenuity and adaptability. You have inspired not only your species, but also others. Leadership is not given, it is demonstrated. You have demonstrated it." Alara allowed herself a small smile. Humans had always thrived by embracing challenges, thinking creatively, and adapting to change. These qualities had not only ensured survival, but now had shaped outcomes on a cosmic scale. As the Orinthia's lights pulsed softly around her, she reflected on the journey. Observation had revealed insight. Engagement had tested adaptability. Insight had guided problem-solving. Leadership had applied all these qualities in action. Humans had succeeded not because of force, but because of intellect, empathy, and ingenuity, qualities that no rigid protocol could replicate. Viral spoke once more, his voice calm but resolute. "Captain Voss, you have proven the human edge. Your species offers what others cannot: flexibility in thought, insight beyond protocol, and creativity in action. This is why humanity is essential, not merely as observers, but as partners, leaders, and innovators." Alara felt a quiet pride swell within her. Humans had always survived against the odds, navigated the unpredictable, and turned challenges into opportunities. Now, their abilities had been recognized by one of the galaxy's most disciplined commanders. The inspection was complete, but the journey was far from over. Humans had a role not only in this system, but potentially in countless others, wherever adaptability, creativity, and insight were needed. Alara understood that her species' strengths were rare and valuable, and that they could shape outcomes far beyond Earth. As she prepared to leave the chamber, Viral inclined his head. "Your work demonstrates potential. The future of human-Xylan collaboration begins now. Observe, learn, lead, and inspire. That is your role." Alara nodded. Humans had proven their value, but more importantly, they had demonstrated their potential. Cooperation, insight, and innovation were qualities that could guide the galaxy toward solutions previously thought impossible. She felt a renewed sense of purpose, not as a visitor or test subject, but as a participant, leader, and contributor. Orinthia's corridors stretched before her, bathed in soft light. She walked with confidence, knowing that humans had an edge that was not measured by strength, but by intellect, empathy, and creativity. The galaxy was vast, its challenges many, and the opportunities for humanity endless. And somewhere deep within the Orinthia, Commander Viral observed silently, acknowledging the spark of curiosity, courage, and intelligence that only humans could bring. Captain Alara Voss understood that this was not the end. It was the beginning, the start of a partnership, a collaboration, and a journey that would test humans in ways unimaginable, yet also allow them to shine in ways uniquely their own. The stars outside the observation deck twinkled as she looked ahead. Humans had an edge, the human edge, and she intended to show the galaxy what it could achieve.